Kia ora, welcome to Connect with Community Waikato on Free FM 89.0 and as part of our podcast series highlighting the amazing mahi that's happening out there in our communities. It's my pleasure today to introduce to you Ian Campbell, who is the co-founder and board chair of Breast Cancer Research Trust, and also with us today, delighted to introduce you to Jenny Scarlett, another co-founder, the Trust Secretary and current research nurse, and Ian obviously as a just recently retired surgeon. So welcome to both of you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Roseanne.
It's great to have you here and hear all about the Breast Cancer Research Trust, and very apt in the fact that you're coming up to 25 years anniversary, which is amazing actually. So I'm keen to find out, sort of why you founded the trust, why it all set up in the first place, and then to hear about some of the awesome research that you're actually have been undertaking, and hopefully can continue to do so going forward. So who wants to start with us?
Maybe Ian, because you were the beginning.
All right.
Right. Well, one of the goals of my career has been to try and improve outcomes for women with breast cancer, not just in the Waikato, but anywhere. And so I was lucky enough to spend a year with Professor John Forbes in Newcastle, New South Wales, and he was the head of the Australia-New Zealand Breast Cancer Trials Group, and he was an amazing mentor, and he introduced me to clinical trials work and to many of the inspirational clinicians in Australia and New Zealand that were contributing to some of the big international trials. So when I got back to the Waikato, one of my goals on top of a busy clinical job and trying to bring up some young children was to try and get some clinical trials underway. And I was lucky enough in the later 1990s to be able to employ Jenny part-time to help get some trials underway, and to do it properly we needed a proper, secure fundraising base. So in 2000 we established the Breast Cancer Research Trust under a different name back then, but we've gone national and that's who we are now. Yep.
Wow, and 25 years is a significant period, sort of a quarter of a century, put it in those words, and it's amazing. So, Jenny, from your perspective, sort of what enticed you to become a part of the trust?
So I had worked as an oncology nurse for 3.5 years, and from there had completed some postgraduate studies and research. And sadly, my mother had passed away from breast cancer, so I had a particular interest in breast cancer. And over my years as an oncology nurse, I nursed a lot of women with breast cancer, and sadly, some women who died of their breast cancer. So this was the era prior to hospice having an inpatient unit. And I had just completed my postgraduate qualification in research when I had a chance meeting with Ian, who happened to be looking for a research nurse, and I was looking for a more normal hours job, not shift work. Mm-hmm. And I knew about one of the clinical trials that he was wanting to get up and running. It was a breast cancer prevention trial, and so it just went from there. And I had experience in submitting a health and disability ethics application, so I knew what it would take to set up a trial. And yes, we went from there, a small number of clinical trials, and then there were more clinical trials coming in the pipeline, and we needed to employ another research nurse, and that was when we decided to set up the trust, because we couldn't employ somebody from a bank account. And so, 2000 we set up the Breast Cancer Research Trust with our vision of ensuring that Waikato women had access to clinical trials, and a bit further down the track a breast cancer register because we both had a passion for improving outcomes for those diagnosed with breast cancer.
Right.
So, our vision statements: gaining knowledge, saving lives, and
yes, and that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. And it's really interesting. I was looking at on your website, which is breastcancerresearch.org.nz, and one of the key statements that just stood out to me was research is simply the best weapon we have to fight breast cancer.
Absolutely.
So obviously that's all part of your vision and part of your why,
Yes.
why you set it up and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So maybe over these last 25 years, it'd be really great to share maybe part of, any highlights from that journey, or probably maybe firstly, though, is what do we mean by a clinical trial? So for those out there that haven't had any experience with that and no knowledge of that, maybe if you can just try and, in layman's terms, just explain what does that actually mean?
Right. Well, it's a properly quality controlled and organised trial of a new treatment of any sort, really. And the gold standard is to do what we call double-blind randomised controlled trials, which is sort of medical gobbledygook, but it effectively means that for women that go in a clinical trial like that, they are allocated by chance to have the new treatment option or best current standard of care, and neither they get to choose which arm they go in, and nor do we as clinicians. And it's done that way to try and, as best possible, remove any potential biases to study outcomes. So a large proportion of the trials that we do are of that type of design, and we've studied pretty much everything from new drug treatments to new surgical treatments to new radiation therapy treatments, to studies to try and improve quality of life. So we've covered a big spectrum of different types of treatment over the years in that way.
And another key statement I also read on your website was around, what can we discover from clinical trials and research? And it says, in a word, everything. Very succinct, and talking about the fact that all of the major advances, that have been made to prevent, treat and cure breast cancer have come from research.
Yeah, and we know that through research over time, we've found out about more what we call subtypes of breast cancer. When my mother was treated in the early 1980s, breast cancer was kind of treated the same, a one-size-fits-all, but over the past 25 years we've tailored or personalised breast cancer treatments to the presence or absence of receptors or growth factors or mutations within a cancer.
So what Jenny's saying is that breast cancer isn't just one thing. There are many subtypes of breast cancer, and we are now getting extremely good results with some subtypes, including some subtypes that 25 years ago were regarded as extremely aggressive, the classical one being so-called HER2-positive breast cancers. But with the development of really good immunotherapies for HER2-positive breast cancers, it's completely changed the prognosis for most women with that particular subtype. So it's been a huge step forwards, and with modern molecular typing technologies, we're hoping to get better and better at picking the appropriate individual treatment for an individual cancer to ultimately get a cure.
Right, which is amazing and just shows, doesn't it, the value of the research that you are undertaking. Previously it was probably all, treated, each type of breast cancer was just treated the same, really, wasn't it? Because they didn't know any different back then.
It's a blunderbuss approach, whether you gave chemotherapy or not, or hormone therapies or not, etc.
So now there's so many more different options out there,
absolutely.
Which is great. Which is great to hear, because unfortunately the statistics are still not great, are they, out there for women, who probably will definitely be diagnosed with breast cancer at some stage or not?
They are and they aren't great, Rosanna. I think that's been another great discovery for us out of the last 25 years. I mean, Jenny and I knew things were gradually getting better and better, but as you mentioned, we also set up the Waikato Breast Cancer Register, which is now part of the Breast Cancer Foundation National Register, and the Breast Cancer Foundation National Register released a fantastic report a few years ago called 30,000 Voices, representing the 30,000 women whose data were included in that, and it covers our 25-year history, or the first 20 years of our 25-year history. And what blew me away from that report was that we had halved the death rate from breast cancer in that time in New Zealand. And it showed a heap of interesting findings, but that was one of the huge ones. I think the next thing that followed on from that was that at the beginning of that time period, the first of 10 years of our 25 years, there were huge inequities in outcome by ethnicity, with Maori and Pacifica women doing way worse on average than European women, and Asian women doing best of all. But in that time period, not only has the overall death rate halved, it is more than halved for Maori and Pacifica women. So the difference by ethnicity is way, way less. It's still there, but it's way less than what it was. And for women who come through the mammographic screening program, doesn't matter what ethnicity or social deprivation level background you come from, your chances of doing well, of cure, are 95% plus regardless. So it is a huge plug for mammographic screening that came out of that report too, really.
Yeah. Most definitely. And I know myself, firm believer in that. So regularly 2-year checkups.
Yes, early detection saves lives and means less radical treatments.
Yeah.
Yep.
And another often forgotten about point that it's not just life-saving. It can be breast-saving and chemotherapy avoiding and all those things as well. So,
yes, because for anyone who's been through any chemo-type treatment, or know of others who have been through that treatment, it's not an easy road, is it? So if you can prevent having to go down that track, the more, better it is for you individually. Those are amazing results that you talked about, how not only halving the death rate, but also too, especially for our Māori and Pacifica ethnic communities as well. That is amazing. We need to shout that from the rooftops, I think.
Yes.
And definitely need more people to come in and support the work that you are doing in that space. And I know we were talking a little bit off air about the fact that, it's amazing, but you currently don't receive any public funding or any funding from, either Te Whataora, Health New Zealand, or any other government agency, and having to rely on sort of donations and other sort of support out there.
And funding that comes with some of the international clinical trials through grant applications and that kind of thing, which is a lot of hard work.
Yes.
And we submit our own grant applications as well, so that's a lot of work.
Yes, a lot of work behind the scenes, isn't it? Yes, and not only are you sort of leading the research side of it, it's just also making sure that you've got the funds available to be able to continue the awesome mahi that you are doing out there.
It's interesting. In the UK now, there is government funding ring-fenced to encourage clinical trials across the board of medical practice, because it's been demonstrated how much that improves outcomes for people in those regions, not only because the participants in those trials are exposed to the latest treatments, but with those clinical trials come standards of care that are applied in those hospitals, and a certain level of knowledge for the clinicians and staff that participated in them. And it's been quite widely demonstrated that people on average will do better if they're in a clinical trial, regardless of whether they're on the standard care arm or on the treatment arm, compared to people who are not on a clinical trial. So, and they save money long term, better outcomes, save money in the healthcare service.
Right. So another sort of vital piece of evidence of why we should be getting more funding coming in to continue these clinical trials and as you say, not just from breast cancer perspective, but across the board, all the different sort of cancers or illnesses that are out there. So we've talked about some of the highlights so far, but I'm sure there's some other highlights over the last 25 years that between you you'd like to share with us all.
Yes, well, we do know that we cure some types of cancer, but there are other subtypes that were not quite there yet. And also for women living with advanced breast cancer, to date it's still considered an incurable cancer, whilst there's more treatment options for these women when their disease, what we call progresses, spreads further. We're hoping to get closer to a cure. And one example of that was an advanced breast cancer clinical trial that I coordinated from 2012 to 2020, and it was a Roche drug called a P13 kinase inhibitor. So it's a very targeted drug to a specific mutation in an advanced breast cancer. And I had one woman who went into remission on this particular drug, and Roche actually supplied several drugs that were the next generation. And so she went into remission for 6 years, which is almost unheard of. And she was switched to standard treatment, and she's still doing well.
She's still here today to tell that story too.
And at one of our earlier appointments, she came along with her 2 preschool granddaughters. Her daughter subsequently had 2 more children. But the 2 earlier grandchildren are now teenage young women, and so she's thrilled to be able to see them grow up. So that's, yes, I saw this particular woman every 4 weeks over an 8-year period. So, close monitoring also helps in terms of picking up any troublesome side effects, for example. So as a research nurse, we do get to know women quite well.
Yes, indeed, amazing story.
She was the only woman in the world who had a good response to this particular agent.
Oh, wow.
And we hear a lot of bad things about drug companies at times, but to Roche's credit, although the drug was going nowhere from a money perspective, they gave the rest of their world supply to us to provide for this lady, and then subsequently newer versions of this type of agent. And so I think she's an example of how we're on the cusp of being able to cure what Jenny was talking about, advanced or metastatic breast cancer. We've always regarded, once it spread distantly from the breast to other parts of the body, that it was no longer curable. But for some subtypes, we're on the cusp of getting to that stage. So,
that is an amazing story. So well done, Jenny.
Yes, and so this woman did actually inspire the scientists to further develop this particular class of drug.
To more effective ones.
Yes.
And an awesome story. Here is Roche, who I'm not sure where they're based in the world, but
Switzerland.
Switzerland.
They have an office in Auckland, and so this woman did meet the medical director based here in New Zealand, who was actually a cancer survivor himself, and so she really inspired him.
Right. So, as you say, kudos to Roche for actually providing what supply they had left to be able to continue that treatment. And then obviously from there, sort of probably taking on board the data that you've been able to provide through your research to then be able to now look at, creating more treatment options available. That's pretty outstanding for, dare I say, a little country like New Zealand. Big kudos to the Trust and all the hard work you've done in that space. So, Ian, what about from yourself? Any other sort of highlights that you'd like to sort of share with us?
Well, a really big thing for me as a surgeon has been how we've managed to what we call de-escalate surgery, the radical level of surgery over that time frame. So we led the introduction of a new surgical technique called sentinel lymph node biopsy, which is, so the sentinel lymph nodes are the first lymph node or nodes that a breast cancer might drain to from the breast. And traditionally, we've just removed most of the lymph nodes from under the armpit as part of breast cancer surgery. We call that an axillary node dissection. So with this new technique, we looked at those first nodes that drained the breast cancer and only removed the remaining nodes if one or more of those first nodes had cancer in it. So the end result of that is that instead of more or less 3/4 of women with breast cancer having most of their lymph nodes removed, we're now down to only about 20% of women requiring that type of surgery. And so not only is the surgery quicker and the recovery quicker, but with axillary node dissection, about 1 in 10 women would get long-term arm swelling that we called lymphedema, and it was a horrible thing to wind up with. Women would have to put on a compression sleeve on their arms every day, and you can imagine how horrible that was in summer, and particularly but uncomfortable at any time of year. And it was a daily reminder of their diagnosis, and most women who got lymphedema hated it. So
I could imagine, yeah,
that's been a huge step forward from a quality of life.
Yeah, massive game changer. Less invasive, and as you say, only 20% having to go through that full procedure. Yeah. That's another outstanding achievement, really. Yeah. And that's all come from the research, the clinical trials that have been undertaken for this past 25 years. Some great highlights
so
there.
Ian's actually led one of the main clinical trials, Australia and New Zealand, the SNAC-2 trial.
Yes, it was an extension of our original trial to see whether that technique was applicable for women with larger or multifocal breast cancers. And we're just right now in the process of analysing the 10-year outcomes, which I can't say a lot more yet because we haven't published it, but I can say that it's, again, very encouraging for the technique. So it has been a great step forwards. Yep.
So that's hopefully some reassurance out there, in particular females. Now, I talk about obviously females because we naturally presume it's females that, statistics-wise, that do get breast cancer. But I do believe that males also can get breast cancer, can't they?
Yes, so we diagnose about 1 man for every 100 women with breast cancer. And it's unfortunately men tend to present a bit later because they don't expect to get breast cancer, and often their GPs don't expect men to be getting breast cancer too. So and it's an extra difficult diagnosis for men to cope with in a way because it's perceived as a woman's disease.
That's right.
Who are you as a man getting a woman's disease? And so it has a lot of ramifications for men, and
Yes, I could imagine that, and as you say, probably not wanting to go to the doctor, or the doctor not even thinking that could be the result. But obviously it is maybe timely message out there for men to also be vigilant as well.
Be breast aware.
Yes, be breast aware. It's not just the females, in their family or whānau. So, I was reading up that there was a point in your website as well that talked a little bit about that, and I went, actually, that's probably something that we don't really touch on, but it is something that we need to be sort of, having those open conversations about. Wow, we've only got 3 minutes to go. Here we were at the beginning, thought, whoa, this is going to take quite some time. So probably just to round us off, and apart from the fact that I know if anyone's wanting to know more about Breast Cancer Research Trust or want to get in contact with you, the website is breastcancerresearch.org.nz, and on the website also is an email address, which is admin@breastcancerresearch.org.nz. There's also a phone number, 07839 8726 extension 97845. But the website itself has a lot of information for people if they wish to go and find out more about the amazing mahi that the Trust has been doing and currently doing, and hopefully continuing to do going forward. Any last sort of messages from both of you?
Oh, for any woman who's diagnosed with breast cancer, if they remember to ask their treating doctor if there is a clinical trial available for them. That's always a good question to ask. And yeah, screening mammograms, early detection saves lives. So if you're eligible to take part in the National Breast Screen Aotearoa program, please make an appointment. And if a woman presents with a breast symptom, a lump, skin dimpling, and we have on our website got the other signs and symptoms to look for, please see your GP to follow up with that symptom.
Yeah, because it can definitely save your life, that's for sure, isn't it? Yeah. Ian, sort of final message from you.
Yes, so while we're doing a lot better, and while most women with breast cancer can now be cured, we've still got our bad players. So we've still got a long way to go, and we need to keep on the work. And for that, we need volunteers, we need funding. So, yeah, we'd love your support.
Yeah, no, I think big plug out there to anyone who's sort of, keen to sort of support the further research and clinical trials. Breast Cancer Research Trust would love to hear from you. You know, any size donation would be, I'm sure, be very well received. And so, as I say, you can just go to their website to find out how you can support, whether it's as a volunteer, whether it's to help with, one of the fundraising events that you might have coming up, or a nice donation. So, look, that is the end of our time. So,
Thank you.
Ian Campbell
thank you.
and Jenny Scarlett, thank you both very much for coming in and sharing all about the amazing research and clinical trials that the Breast Cancer Research Trust is taking. So,
Thank you, Roseanne.
Thank you. And that's the end of our show. Kia kaha.